Solasta offers a total of 4 DLCs. 2 of them introduce whole new campaigns, while the other 2 provide smaller additions with a bit less content. I will start with them. They are the Primal Calling and Inner Strength DLCs, and are primarily focused on introducing new classes and races to the game. In the first DLC, Primal Calling, Barbarians and Druids were added, each featuring 3 subclasses. Additionally, a half-orc ancestry and a wanderer background are introduced. It is worth noting that the background includes an extra background-related quest, which is a nice touch. While the new race is a welcome addition, its impact on the gameplay is somewhat limited, since there is no reactivity tied to the race within the game. The new classes, on the other hand, offer more depth, although there's not an extensive amount to discuss. They seem to have the same level of polish as the base classes in the game, and are largely adapted from D&D, featuring a few homebrew subclasses. It's somewhat disappointing to note the lack of reactivity, especially for the druids. Transforming into animals doesn't have any impact outside of combat. You won't find situations where you can morph into a rat to sneak past guards, or into a bear to intimidate someone. The Inner Strength DLC finds itself in a similar position. While it also introduces a fresh ancestry, it goes a step further by delivering 3 new classes instead of just 2. This DLC brings a Warlock, Bard and Monk classes, accompanied by the addition of the Dragonborn race. Notably, there's no inclusion of a new background, which isn't a substantial loss, to be frank. We've had the chance to fully explore all 3 of these new classes, and they hold up well, providing engaging and enjoyable experience that closely mirror their tabletop D&D counterparts. However, there are a few oddities present. One instance that stood out to me is when a Warlock chooses the Pact of the Chain at level 3, they don't gain the familiar summoning ability as expected. Instead, it allows them to apply a self-buff once per long rest. A very weird change. Reflecting on these DLCs, I'm somewhat uncertain about having the core player's handbook races and classes locked behind a paywall. On one hand, the classes are indeed distinct, and I understand that implementing them wasn't a simple task, especially when accounting for the inclusion of homebrew subclasses, which undoubtedly required effort to conceptualize. On the flip side, these classes and races are essentially the foundation of any D&D experience and are typically available to all players. If the price point were more reasonable, it might have been acceptable, but the full cost of $16 to access the basic classes feels somewhat steep, especially considering the absence of substantial discounts. This DLC marks both the latest and final addition to the game, though it was actually the first one I've delved into. The reason being that it extends the narrative of the main game's Crown of the Magister campaign, even offering the opportunity to import characters from there into this new campaign. Your characters should be around level 11 at this point, and this campaign lets you level up to 16. I think that raising the level cap to 16 was a smart move. Having the ability to learn spells up to level 8 is awesome. And I can say that your party feels too overpowered, which often is a problem with high-level D&D campaigns. Although, to be frank, Solasta can't do justice to many of these high-level abilities. Most of them should look much more epic than it makes them. Just take the Firestorm spell for example. A storm made up of sheets of roaring flame appear in a location you choose. Yeah. Besides the level cap and the campaign itself, this DLC also introduces 2 new races, Gnomes and Tieflings. Gnomes basically just look like halflings with large heads, and the initial look of Tieflings wasn't great. They all had a weird tattoo on their forehead and an odd black chin. Fortunately, the developers added better looking faces in an update that got rid of the strange chin and tattoo. Though an improvement, it still falls short of being a respectable adaptation. The campaign within this DLC offers a distinct visual experience compared to the main game. Since you're mostly interacting with dwarves, you become immersed in their architecture, interiors, and way of life. Expect visits to smaller dwarven enclaves, grandiose dwarven castles, and more. Much of the DLC unfolds amidst snow-covered mountains and caverns, thereby introducing enemies such as giants, trolls, and snow wolves. Although the experience extends beyond dwarven themes. Most notably, this campaign grants you the chance to visit the city of wood elves. I really enjoyed exploring it. The storyline isn't groundbreaking once again. You're called to assist the Snow Alliance, which is facing issues with the already familiar Sorax and also demons who are supporting them. The Snow Alliance consists of 5 clans, and each clan presents you with a questline. Each clan is unique and has its own issues, which makes it interesting to explore and learn about them. One clan involves wood elves infiltrated by Sorax, while another is a clan of dwarves dealing with the giant-related troubles. Each of these questlines lasts about 3 to 4 hours, and it all culminates in an epic showdown against the BBEG. Finally, they managed to include a proper boss fight into the game. Additionally, there are more choices within this campaign. They might be small and not dramatically altering the course of events, but at least they exist. They make you feel like you have a say, rather than just following the game's script. When you come across an ancient giant's artifact, you can decide whether to return it, give it to dwarves, sell it, or keep it. Admittedly, in the grand scheme, most of these choices barely change anything and won't be brought up again. But at least there is a choice, unlike in the main game. In the end, you even get the standard RPG scene that shows you how your choices affected the world and what happened to all the characters after the finale. What caught my attention as particularly intriguing is the new approach to dialogues in this DLC. Instead of characters rigidly standing face to face and delivering lines, now, sometimes, they seem more dynamic. Conversations can unfold while characters are sitting around the fire or walking down a bridge. And the UI gets a fresh look. The traditional method is still there, now we just have both. Though at times the new one does come off as awkward and cheap. In certain scenes, characters remain rooted in their spots, which ends up looking even worse than the default method. What's also notable is that these types of dialogues are exclusive to this DLC and aren't present elsewhere in the game. Lastly, there's loot. Finally, this DLC brings a true RPG experience by handing out loot to your party. You come across a steady stream of new and upgraded items for your characters, and even quest completion can yield rewards. In the span of this DLC, we have found around 10 legendary items, whereas we found none in the main game. In essence, this DLC significantly enhances the core game. It tackles various aspects that were problematic in the main campaign, such as offering better choices, a much wider array of intriguing loot, dialogues that can feel more natural, and a well-executed climax with a proper boss showdown. The catch is that it feels a bit odd, considering these improvements weren't integrated into the main campaign. While these enhancements are welcome, it really feels that they should have been part of the base game, rather than tucked away in a separate DLC. This was the game's second DLC and its first campaign expansion. I chose to play it second, because it's an entirely different story, not related to the crown of the Magister. In this DLC, you start from level 1, which means you need to create a new party of 4 characters. A big part of the game's enjoyment comes from experiencing new parties with different classes and races. Doing this in a new and separate campaign is a lot more exciting than replaying the original one. This DLC also brings more than just a campaign. It introduces new subclasses for all classes available in the game. This even adds on top of other DLCs. As far as I can tell, all these subclasses are homebrews, specifically designed for this DLC. Overall, a great addition to the game. The environments in this DLC are quite distinctive from the main game, although they are not as varied. You spend most of your time in a valley filled with jungles, forests and swamps. The color palette and architecture are different from what we've seen before, but I can't say that I found it particularly engaging. The environments look somewhat similar from one area to another, lacking a distinct feel. The good thing is that the level design here is a bit more compelling than in the Crown of the Magister. There are many more secrets to discover, pathways that lead in different directions, and traps that cleverly hide loot. And there's a greater amount of loot as well. It's not a huge increase, not nearly as much as in the Palace of Ice, but you do stumble upon interesting items every now and then. The story of this DLC is quite unique. Your party gets stuck in the valley with an oppressive dictator as a leader, and the game surprises you with something quite unexpected. Choices that actually matter and influence the story. In this valley, you again encounter 5 different factions. The direction the story takes heavily relies on which faction you decide to assist. Will you support a secretive organization with little known about it, a well-organized rebellion, the ordinary people of the valley, a group of crafters and scavengers, or the oppressive government itself? And for the most part, you actually can't support multiple factions at the same time. Once I started actively helping the rebellion, I couldn't do quests for the government or the mask anymore. This is the only campaign in the game that truly offers variety. It's the only one you can replay to make different choices, interact with different characters, explore new places and experience unique stories. It's quite an exciting feature to have. Not only that, this campaign even introduces some side quests, which oddly enough were lacking in the main game. It's not something I expected to be excited about in an RPG. These side quests consist of small stories and opportunities, aiding a random giant in building a chair, hunting a wild bear for its meat, and the like. Although modest in scope, these quests add a nice touch, expanding the game world and providing extra content. However, all these branching pathways and choices are far from flawless. In this campaign, I encountered one of the most frustrating examples of diverging approaches. After investing around 5 hours into a faction's questline, there was a sudden, random persuasion check. If you happen to fail this check, the entire quest chain collapses and the faction becomes hostile.
Go and don't come back. We will take care of ourselves without your help.
All your progress gets wiped out. Who came up with this? What kind of game design is that? On the whole, it's a solid DLC. It offers a sizable replayable campaign with a decent story and choices that actually matter. There are fresh enemies to face, novel places to explore and new characters to meet. In many ways, I find it more appealing than the main campaign, yet I still can't confidently say it was a great experience. Thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing. I am a very small channel and your support means a lot. This video was just a slice of my comprehensive comparison between Solasta and Baldur's Gate 3. If I've completed the full video, you can watch it here. If not, check out another slice right here.